Hey guys, how are you doing? So, if you're listening to this today, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for tuning in. This is gonna be my first video in a series that I'm gonna upload to my social media and also to YouTube. So, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Adam Taharoui. I'm 28 years of age and I've been practicing Reiki since I was 18. And today I'm gonna talk to you about the benefits of Reiki, how I actually dealt my skepticism around, energetic healing modalities, and I'll explain what Reiki itself actually is for any of you who don't know. So, yeah, when I was 18 and I first came across Reiki, I would have been skeptic, nihilistic, depressed, full of self-hatred and anger. And yeah, I didn't think there was much more to life except for, drink, drugs, alcohol, sex, and I did a lot of kickboxing and boxing in my earlier years, so violence would have been a very, very good way for me to vent that anger and rage that I had inside. So before I get into explaining the benefits of Reiki and such, I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about my history and stuff like that. So my father's from North Africa. He's from Algeria, the ghettos of Algiers City, a ghetto called Cuba. And my mother's from Kilkenny, and she lived in a Gorn Castle, which was got a lot of history there. It was actually rebuilt. It was burnt down during British colonialisation during the 1500s. So it's got a lot of history there. My grandmother was a historian and stuff, and my grandfather was a farmer on that side. My dad moved here in the early 90s, and in 1999, after moving around for quite a few years, he's ended up setting up a restaurant in Tullamore, Sirocco's, which has been there for over 20 years now. Quite a successful Italian restaurant, and yeah, so the majority of people listening to this would know about that. And I'd like to explain also why I'm uploading this video, because my biggest passion in life is helping people on a one-to-one basis dealing with mental health. And I feel like by being authentic, sharing my truth, that's one of the most powerful mediums of helping people. Because when you listen to someone speaking honestly about stuff they've been through, their experiences, you can relate to that. And although it's not a cure or a magic pill or anything, when you hear someone speaking their truth, and you can relate to it, if you're in a bad place, it can help you get through that day. And maybe hearing someone's story like mine, which I feel like there is quite a bit of value in sharing, it could help people to see that there is a little bit more to life, and if you're in a bad place, know that there's something else you can do. So having said that, I'm going to go back to maybe when I was 4 years of age. I was living in a town called Cork. My father, to Castletownbere in County Cork. My father had a restaurant called San Marino down there, and that was a beautiful little seaside city, but the business was good, during the summer, and absolutely dead. Very, very much so a seasonal type of business. That didn't really work out in the end. So he would have had quite a few failures before Sirocco's became successful in 99. And because of this, I always had to move from one school to another. So it would have been like Castletownbere, then to Stradbally, then to Athy, then back to Stradbally again, and finally we settled in Tullamore. So during these years, because I have a funny surname, quite a difficult one to pronounce, a lot of teachers would have struggled with it. I would have always been the kid getting bullied in school, so I would have had a lot of anxiety growing up, starting in all these different schools. It was a difficult experience for me. Like around the age of 6, I remember I got in a really, really bad fight where this kid, he was picking on me in school because I had a thing where I'm quite a good reader and a writer, and I always loved putting my hand in class and reading, and there was a lot of jealousy around this. And I remember having a couple of back and forths on the schoolyard, but one day after school, we're on a bus and he ended up stamping on my face. I remember being on the ground and he was just, stamping the shit out of me. And basically after that day, I was so nervous to even open my mouth in class that week. I ended up pissing in my pants basically, because yeah, I was so scared I wouldn't even put up my hand to ask the teacher could I go to the toilet. And for whatever reason, that teacher thought it was a good idea to fucking make me change my pants up at the front of the classroom rather than, letting me go to the bathroom and do it in privacy. She got me a new pair of trousers and made me change behind the desk, which fucking, further added to my embarrassment. So, like, that was some pretty traumatic shit. And there's loads of incidents like that I would have experienced, but trying to stick to the point, I won't delve into them here. So yeah, finally, after all this moving, and it's quite a unsettling childhood, we finally moved to Tullamore in '99, and my father ended up setting up Sirocco's, Senoricos, which is now known as Sirocco's. So yeah, within the first year of that business being set up, he passed away in a tragic accident. And I'm not going to make this too heavy because I don't want to be upsetting people or anything like that and going too deep. But I remember the morning, so my mother came out and she couldn't tell my siblings and I that basically he had passed away. So what happened was she told us he was hurt. And I remember I cried my eyes out when it got to that stage, because in my head it was like, he's hurt and he's going to be okay, but like there was hope. So for whatever reason, I felt the pain there, and relatives started to arrive. I was 8, it was the 22nd of December 99, so I was just about to turn 9. My birthday is the 27th of December, so for years afterwards, like, I fucking hated that part of the year, Christmas and my birthday. It was just, I didn't feel like I deserved to celebrate, essentially, because my dad wasn't around. So yeah, I remember one of my family members, she came over to me and she said, like, looked me right in the eyes and said, "You're the man of the house now. You have to look after your brother, your sister, and your mother." Like, I was an 8-year-old kid who was literally, like, after losing my father, but I always carried that burden of responsibility till a couple of years ago when I finally managed to get past that. But yeah, basically when she said that to me, I realized there was something more going on, because my mother was devastated and she still couldn't bring herself to tell her kids that their father had passed away. So a couple of minutes later, she got up. My mum went to the bathroom and locked the door, and I followed her, put my ear to the door, and I heard her saying, "I'd like to make some funeral arrangements for my husband." And so I walked away from the door, got on my hands and knees and said, "God, you're a bastard." Looked up at the sky, and after that, I didn't feel anything. Like, I shut off completely and emotionally shut down. For next time I cried after that was 16. The only emotions I allowed myself to feel were anger and self-hatred. Like, I was really in a really dark place at a young age. So yeah, basically, after that, we went to the funeral. I shut off. I didn't cry. I basically pretended it didn't happen. And as I said, I love reading, so my head went into Harry Potter. It was Prisoner of Azkaban at the time, that book, and I just went into that. I did not take my head out of either a book or a Game Boy for years. I just completely shut off emotionally. The only time was in school, for example. If someone was picking on me in the schoolyard, I'd fight back. I'd lash out in violent anger. So yeah, that was my way of dealing. And I was still, obviously, because I'd been bullied so much in those younger years, from school to school to school for 4 or 5 years, I was essentially very, very, very insecure, and I would do anything to kind of people please. So skip forward a couple of years, I started boxing around 12, and I was diagnosed with borderline asthma, so the doctors wouldn't let me fight. So I didn't get to have my first competition until I was 15, and I've been training the whole time. So yeah, that was frustrating for me as a kid, because I wanted to compete and use boxing as a fucking means of getting my rage out. So yeah, around the same time, 13, 14 would have been the first time I smoked weed. And that's another thing, not just with weed or any other with all drugs, essentially. I feel like I've got quite a bit of experience. I understand the negatives and the positives, and I feel like I definitely have a part of my story to tell about how I would have dealt with addiction, because I self-medicated for a long, long time. Weed isn't the worst thing in the world, but for me, my relationship with it turned toxic very, very early on in my life, because it was the first time I really felt okay in myself. And, it was a mirror for me to be able to deal with my emotions. But we're not going to get too much into that today. Anyway, so yeah, going through my teenage years, basically because weed was my way of self-medicating, the kids that I was hanging around with at 13 and 14 were all selling this sort of stuff. And for me to get drugs, I was putting myself around a circle of people that wouldn't have essentially had the same ambitions as me. Because I was still doing pretty good in school, and I quite enjoyed writing. I quite enjoyed certain topics in school. So for me, I was kind of living two lives during my teenage years, and still full of self-hatred and confusion. Around the age of 16, I would have started to self-harm. And when I say self-harm, what I would do is I'd get massive anxiety here in my chest, and to get rid of that anxiety, I'd have negative thoughts like, you're a piece of shit, you're no good, you're this and you're that. I was constantly mentally beating myself up. And that anxiety, I would try and get rid of it by physically beating myself up. I would punch myself in the face. I'd get into fits of rage, and I've given myself black eyes during that time, like multiple times. So yeah, that was while this was all going on, I'm getting heavier and heavier into my weed use and other substances as well. And feeling quite hopeless and lost in life. But so I'd say we'll skip forward to after I did my leaving cert. I went to study journalism in Exeter College in England, and at that time I was more interested in partying, getting stoned, and going out and having a good time than I was in fucking studying. So what happened was, I was quite lonely over there. I wasn't really connecting with anybody on a friendship level, and I felt like I'd made a bad choice because all my friends were back home, and as far as I was aware, they were all having a great time without me. So at that point, I dropped out after maybe 6 months, and I came back to Tullamore, and that was when I first came across Reiki. Now, I'm still full of rage, still full of anger, still dealing with this anxiety where I'm beating myself up mentally and physically on a daily basis. Like it's not like anybody knew. When I'd go out and talk to somebody, like, the mask would come on straight away. People wouldn't see this pain and sadness within me because I was quite a happy-go-lucky person, although I was fucking dying on the inside. So my mother, she went and got a Reiki session done. So for any of you who don't know, Reiki is a hands-on healing modality, and it works on the premise that as human beings, when we repress and suppress our emotions, we keep those emotions within ourselves. Like, for example, if you don't speak your truth, you don't share how you feel, or your anger, that builds up, like, say, for example, in tension in your jaws. Anxiety tends to sit in your solar plexus, and you can see this in people who don't breathe correctly, So if you don't love yourself, or you give out too much of your love, for example, your energy center in your heart chakra here, that will either be too big or too small. So for me, when I heard about this, my mother was telling me she was getting some hands-on, hands-off shit that this person was doing, moving her hands around the body. I was like, whoever's doing that is a fucking fraud. Like there's no way that works. It's bullshit. But I went out for my first Reiki session basically thinking I was going to catch this fraud out. And yeah, what happened was, how would I describe it? So essentially, she, without her hands being anywhere near my head, maybe 6 to 8 inches away, I can feel this deep heat, and like a weight, like a weight that you'd feel of, like an energetic weight is the only way to describe it. And I instantly feel really relaxed, calm, and it starts to ground me. And yeah, I also could feel like I was being lifted on a beautiful cloud up. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. That was essentially the first session. Over the hour, I was just beautiful feelings of being lifted and light in my body, and a lot of sensations where I can actually feel stuff shifting, like this push within my stomach. So I'm thinking, okay, I walk out and I'm like, some sort of bullshit here, right? Okay, number one, she was burning incense, and she had essential oils in the room. So I'm like, okay, this woman, she has her trick, you know what I mean? It's like a magician. There's some sort of placebo effect here that's working on my head. And as well, like, I was very much into reading Richard Dawkins, who's an atheist and very, very, very intelligent, well-spoken scientist who's got quite a few books on atheism. He'd be quite an advocate pushing it. So for me, I believe in what he said as well. He's got a good story in terms of like debunking the myth of creation in the Bible, which is quite interesting. You know, his whole premise is that they don't talk about in the story of creation in the Bible, when God created the earth in 7 days. He's like, it was made by people who at that time tried to understand the world from what they knew and what they could make sense of, and that was the sky, the stars, nature, animals, the rivers and plants, because that's all that's in the God's story of creation in the Bible. He's like, they didn't know about atoms, molecules, particles, and everything that actually makes up physical matter in the world around us. Why? Because they didn't understand science. So, you know, that's a very, very, very good argument, and the book's brilliant. It's a fantastic book. I definitely would recommend anybody to read it. It's called The Magic of Reality. However, so I was confused. I was very confused, but but it did feel good. So, and it helped with a lot of my anger. I could feel stuff going on. I didn't feel like punching myself in the face for a couple of days after. So I was like, okay, I might as well try it again. So I think for 5 weeks in a row, I went every week, and the experiences, they got deeper and deeper and deeper, and more enjoyable. And I felt I did feel a change, but I was still struggling with it. Yet some part of me, like, I asked her, okay, can I learn this technique for myself so that I can use it at home? Because with Reiki, there's just 3 levels. You can learn Reiki 1 for yourself, that's you self-heal. Reiki 2 is where you do Reiki for other people, and Reiki 3 then is it's where you learn how to teach. So I learned Reiki 1. A couple of months later, I went back and I did Reiki 2. And during that period, you're supposed to meditate for 21 days in a row, while you're going through letting this new energy vibration come into your body. So I did that, and quite a few profound experiences. Like with Reiki, for me, there's a very, very, very definite, tangible, physical effect to it. So I couldn't deny that, because, you know, I put all my skepticism aside. I'd open my eyes during the session as well, and I'd watch where this lady's hands were, and they were always 6 to 8 inches above my body. Yet I'm feeling this stuff spinning and just going right through me. And, you know, I'm literally feeling, the only thing I could describe it as, energy being shifted and moved in my body. I've had acupuncture done as well in the past, and I find acupuncture, when done in the right place, can have quite a similar effect. And it works on the same premise, that we have meridians, these lines of energy that run through our body, as well as the 7 chakras, which quite a lot of people are familiar with. So, yeah, I learned Reiki 1, I learned Reiki 2, and I just stopped punching myself in the face. The anxiety just went from here to here, you know. And I mean, even if it is bullshit or a placebo effect, okay, it'll still work for me. So from this point, my skeptical side was kicking back in, and I'm like, if I'm going to learn this and teach this in the future, which I was quite drawn to do, I was like, there has to be some sort of scientific proof. And so I spent hours and hours and hours on the internet researching, and there was nothing, you know, except for like massive amount of anecdotal stories, people coming back and telling about how it would work for them, you know. Other than that, there's very little. So essentially, I'm still going on with this struggle, but I actually had a conversation with one of my teachers who I learned in the year after I'd started learning Reiki. I'd heard from a friend that he'd been practicing it for quite a while. So, and funnily enough, he was my favorite teacher in school. He taught physics, chemistry, and biology. So he was, you know, a rationalist scientist as far as I was concerned, and I always was drawn towards him because of that. So I met him one day for coffee, and I was like, look, obviously you're an intelligent man who believes in science, and I was like, how do you reconcile the two? But like with Reiki and with science, obviously there's no proof at the minute. And what he said, it really, you know, it resonated with me on quite a deep level. What he said was that pharmaceutical studies, they could develop means and ways of testing Reiki and like bringing it into the mainstream consciousness that it is, we could prove it essentially if the money was put into it. But it's like big pharma is a business. So say for example, if you run a business and you want to make profit and your biggest business is selling tablets like antidepressants that people keep taking over and over and over again, why would you want to put money into something that's going to destroy your business? Because Reiki, as a tool for an individual to be able to look at themselves, look at their traumas, look at their insecurities, and be able to move that energy and get past this stuff. It was very, very, very damaging for big pharma. So he's like, you're probably not going to see studies being put into it. And also, it's like, if you think about the telephone, what are you doing with the telephone? You're transmitting energy, vibrations from one side of the planet to the other. It's like 200 years ago, if you try to explain that to someone, they think you're a lunatic. He's like, but we all know today that like it's just a complete part of our society. Like the fact that I'm able to even sit here right now, record this video, upload it to the internet and have hundreds of people watch it, like, I mean, that's a miracle in and of itself. It's just that we're conditioned to believe that it's normal. But 100 years ago that concept would have been fucking wild as, but here we are today. So with Reiki, that kind of helped me get past my skepticism, because it's like, it's quite weird. I was experiencing cognitive dissonance because I'm practicing something, yet I'm quite skeptical about the whole thing and not really able to that it was just causing a lot of internal kind of internal conflict really at the time, even though I was having quite a lot of benefits. So around the same time then, I began practicing mixed martial arts in a club here in Tullamore, and that was a beautiful period of my life. Like, I would have had like almost 50 boxing matches and like 10 kickboxing fights during my teenage years. And I got out of it to do during my leaving cert year. So I stopped fighting from 17 and 18 and then 19 as well. I wasn't really into it, but when an MMA club opened up in Tullamore, I jumped at the chance and I got back into it in there. So for me, I was able to have the balance there where I was, I wouldn't have even been into meditation as well, but with Reiki, meditating with that just instantly brought me into a place of Zen that I didn't even think was possible, Like, my thoughts were boom, 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 100 miles an hour. But I was able to step back from that and look within myself and grow. So yeah, MMA also helped me to figure out diet, to figure out breath work, control of the mind, and give me an even heightened sense of self-worth, because I was still struggling with the self-hate thing, although it was more of it had calmed down to the point where I wasn't beating on myself, but I still had my insecurities, my vulnerabilities, and I was still carrying that hard man image that I had from my teenage years. Because that was my way of defending myself from being bullied. So when it gets to that point, I ended up traveling after training for a couple of years. I had a couple of fights in Indonesia and in Thailand, and I really enjoyed that part of my year, but I did end up kind of feeding into the ego thing as well with mixed martial arts, which is very, very, very common. So yeah, I ended up around 25, I was back working in a restaurant, and as I said, I still have this thing where I had the burden of responsibility, which was very, very much so a real thing during all of this period with the restaurant. Like, I had other ambitions in life, like with the MMA, like I wanted to go professional, but I felt if I did that, I'd have to quit working in the restaurant and go, full on into that. And I had a big amount of guilt in terms of doing that, because I felt like with my mother having ran a business, as she was pregnant when Dad died as well. So she was 2 months gone and ended up keeping the business that was in his first year. And as you know, 90% of startup businesses fail within the first year. So I had a massive amount of pride and respect for my mother, and I didn't want to leave her. I didn't want to abandon her, essentially, is how I felt. So yeah, eventually I ended up setting a business called a nutrition kitchen, and then I changed it to the Dairy Bros. Myself and my brother were doing meal prep, cooking food, and it was quite busy. Yeah, I took on way too much responsibility. I was working essentially a 9-day a week, I call it, running the restaurant and also running my own business. So I didn't really have any time for myself, and during this period I slipped away from Reiki. I got into money, I got into fucking material things. I was partying really, really hard at the weekend. I wasn't training as much, and I wouldn't say I was getting greedy, because the reason I got into the business was I felt food for me had, once I understand how to have a good diet and nutrition, it really, really helped me with my sense of self-worth, and I wanted to give that with other people. So it wasn't about the money when I started, but I was blowing through money like there was no tomorrow. I just wasn't saving, and I felt like a bit of an idiot for that. But I was also still smoking a lot of weed and partying at the weekend. So I'm juggling all this shit, like running a business, managing a business, getting high every day, fucking, and I'm not meditating, not doing the things that I knew were good and nurturing for my soul, which is meditating, breath work, and Reiki. So basically, before I left for Australia, I was in a really, really dark place again, and I didn't know why, because I was looking at it, it's like, shit, you have everything now, Adam. You're financially successful, business is going well, and it's growing from strength to strength every week. Why do you feel like this emptiness inside yourself? And I just kind of pushed away. I was like, fuck that. I knew I was drawn towards healing people, and yet I felt like I convinced myself that I had to work in the restaurant for my family, and then essentially I was sacrificing this dream of helping people with their mental health on a one-to-one basis and living that life for essentially making my family okay and bringing that financial security. So although at the same time I'm fucking spending all the money, so it was although I would have got there, but basically, so this bout of depression came on, and I was confused as fuck. I'm like, I felt like it just wasn't sitting with me. It wasn't a part of my picture, and so it kept getting worse and worse and worse, because I was pushing it down, I wasn't addressing it, and I wasn't using any of the tools that I have been giving in life to deal with it. So before I left for Australia, I remember a couple of months before, probably November of 2018, I was not even fantasizing, but getting thoughts of, will I hang myself? And then I'm saying, hold on, buddy, why would you even think about that? The fact that I was thinking about it was terrifying me, and I wanted to kind of run out my own head. And I'm like, it was a lot to take on. So I remember going to see a Reiki practitioner to get healing, and I walked into the room, sat down in the chair, and she looked at me and goes, why is there a noose around your neck? And I was like, fuck. And so she explained, she's like, look, you've been given these gifts, you have them, you understand them, but if you don't let that light shine, if you don't put it out there and give it back what you've been given, then you're always going to struggle with your mental health, and you're never going to fully be happy. And I mean, I genuinely do feel like clarity, that this is my purpose in life, and it's taken me 10 years to really, really own that. So I mean, I'm trying to not let this video go over 30 minutes today. I'm almost getting there. So I'd just like to say, if you resonated with anything I'm saying, please feel free to share this video, or if you are struggling with your mental health and you wanted to speak to me, or even book a session. I'm not looking to do this from a financial perspective. I'm going to run all my one-to-one sessions on a donation basis. And I also feel with Reiki, it's something that I wouldn't push it, but if you did feel like you had a benefit from it after a couple of sessions, and I would recommend learning it as a tool, because it'll deepen your connection with meditation. It'll slow down those negative thoughts, and it'll help remove that anxiety, self-hate, or whatever you're feeling, any of these negative emotions that all of us experience as human beings. So yeah, if you are going through any of this stuff, feel free to give me a shout, and just hit me up with a little private message here, either here on YouTube or on Facebook. I'm going to share this message in a couple of local mental health groups as well. So yeah, if you did listen to this video, I really, really, really appreciate it. I know I've been a little bit nervous, but as I said, I was going to do this as a podcast, so I wouldn't have to talk to the camera, because that's my number one fear in life, is speaking straight into a camera. So I hope for day one it was okay, and you managed to get something out of this story. So yeah, thank you very much and have a good night, guys. Peace.